This is part two of the project chartering video series, and in part one, we took a look at process improvement project charters at a high level. Now what we're going to do is zoom into the specific field elements and give some pro tips along the way on information to include to see more successful project outcomes and create better focus for the team and the organization. All right. I've cleaned up the screen and I've got our generic project charter template displayed right now. I'm going to zoom in so that we can take a closer look at each one of these fields. Our problem statement, this is going to be a short and sweet statement about what the issue is. It's typically going to describe the frustration. It will typically also describe in some way the user group that is feeling that frustration. It should also describe some of the frustration that the organization feels as well. So this could be cost concerns, capacity concerns, pain points that the organization feels. The benefits that will occur if this problem is improved, the next field, this is if we were to reduce this frustration, make this frustration go away, what would we see as a result? Some of these benefits could be time savings, cost savings, capacity gains, could be customer satisfaction, could be safety. What are the benefits both internal and external stakeholders will feel if we were to solve or reduce this frustration? Notice that neither the problem statement nor the benefits section describe the actual solution. That's key. We are not here to describe the solutions in a process improvement project charter yet. We'll save that until after root cause analysis has been performed. The process boundaries are going to include the beginning and ending points and something about the output that the process has. Typically, also who that end user is that's receiving that output. Scope. Here's the interesting thing about scope in a process improvement project charter. I originally like to keep the scope statement neutral or blank and just let my process boundaries of beginning and end describe the area that we will be investigating. Later on, once we find out more information, we typically then go back and modify scope, where we frequently are reducing scope by considering things like a reduction of not all product SKUs will be looked at, only certain product SKUs. Not all customers will be examined, only a certain subgroup of customer types. Maybe it's a scope reduction based on geographic regions. Only one facility or one branch is being looked at. I look at my scope down statements later after the team has understood better what's broken in current state. Usually at the end of the define phase as part of a toll gate review, we're reducing scope or modifying scope. Sometimes after the measure phase, after we've collected that qualitative and quantitative data. There are occasions though where we will increase scope, where we will realize that this process and the process boundaries that we originally guessed at are too small, and we need to make scope adjustments the other way. Reduction more frequent than an increase in scope, but either one can be included. I do it after I have collected more of an understanding about what's going on in current state. I do like to include in a process improvement project charter the type of methodology that we're using, whether it's going to be DMAIC or Kaizen or just roll up your sleeves, just do it, or any of the other problem-solving methodologies like PDCA or others. Part of the reason this helps the team leader, and the sponsor know what types of problem-solving tools will be used. It also helps to make sure that we've talked earlier about how different methodologies are better suited for different types of process problems. Processes that are very visual and contained within one work group area, Kaizen event. but processes that span multiple work groups or the entire organization, that have lots of idle time handoffs or white space. Those are great candidates for DMAIC style projects. So I like to describe which one it is. Next on our list are stakeholders. Stakeholders are all of the people, groups of people and systems that are affected by the work done on this process improvement project. It's definitely going to include the team, the sponsor, the business groups affected, the different customers that are affected, but it could include more. So make sure that time is spent on this. We actually have a whole separate video on stakeholder analysis. Let your stakeholder analysis help you with this section. The process performance metric or goal statement in a project charter, I think, is extremely important. It's going to be a short couple of sentences that creates incredible focus for the team and all of those that are working with the team. And so I've dedicated a whole separate video on creating performance-based goal statements. There are some traps with using traditional goal statement writing techniques like SMART goal writing. I'm going to pull that aside, treat that as an entire separate video. The team members and SMEs, I want to be clear on what I mean by SMEs. For the context of a project charter, SMEs, sometimes called subject matter experts, are not just people who understand a lot about the process, who have a lot of experience or expertise, but they are individuals or groups of people that we are borrowing during this initiative. They aren't in it for the long haul like team members are. Team members you get for the whole project. I'm calling out SMEs as borrowed resources. I like to point them out in the project charter because if they are borrowed, I like to specify when I think I'm going to need to borrow them. Like for example, in the measure phase of a DMAIC project, that's the phase that we do a lot of data collection and data analysis, and sometimes we need access to data systems. So we're frequently calling on IT or our business intelligence group or data scientists to help us with that data. I'd love to have them as a team member. Frequently, I can't get them because they're busy on other initiatives. So I call them out as being a needed borrowed resource. And if we can't get them during the time period specified, it's going to slow down the project. So SMEs, those individuals and groups of people that are going to be borrowed for particular activities. For the project timeline, because we don't know what the solution is on day one, this is going to be less about how long it takes to implement the solution and more about how long it's going to take us to get to a solution plan, to an implementation plan, to how long it's going to take for the investigation. And for a DMAIC-based project, I use a very simple and straightforward formula that's based on just practical experience that I've seen participating in hundreds of these process improvement projects. Here's the breakdown. I use the 30-30-10-10-10 rule, where the define phase is going to take about 30% of the project time. The measure phase is going to take about 30% of project time. Analyze, 10% of project time. Improve phase and its suite of tools, 10% of project time. And the control phase and its suite of tools, 10%. The extra 10% of that 90% total that's laid out right there is buffer or slack that the team leader can use in case any one of these estimates is difficult. And I will then work with my sponsor on asking, when do you want to see the solution implementation plan on your desk? If you tell us when you want to review and approve this solution implementation plan, I'll time box each one of the phases based on this 30-30-10-10-10 rule. So I will go back to my team and say, our sponsor needs this in 100 days. We've got 30 days to do define phase tools and activities. We've got 30 days for measure, 10 days for analyze, 10 for improve, 10 for control, and I've got an extra 10 days that I can use in case weird things happen. I love the 30-30-10-10-10 rule. When it comes to Kaizen events, it's very straightforward as well. For Kaizen events, the prep phase is typically 1 to 4 weeks that the team leader spends in advance. The event with the team in which we do the analysis, implement solutions, build future state solutions, and then standardize those solutions, that's done in 1 to 5 days. And then the follow-up phase where you are doing audits, more detailed documentation, that follow-up phase, 1 to 4 more weeks. The resources needed, these are the resources needed to run the investigation. They are not the resources needed for solutions. The resources needed for solutions will lay out in our solution implementation plan. At the end of the improve phase, when we've identified the solutions that are the best of the best, part of that implementation plan will be what those solution resources are needed. At the beginning of a process improvement project, these are the resources needed just for the investigation. Examples of these investigation resources might be common war room for people to meet. It might mean access to telepresence technology for interviewing, or a travel budget if you need to go to different facilities to do direct observation. It could be special software that the individuals or team needs. It could be a budget for working lunches. Those are all examples of the special resources that I call out as needed. Risks are the known risks on day one. These risks will be updated. These risks will be updated when we have a better understanding of the solution. So any risks we identify early on day one, for sure they'll get updated as we identify new solutions. I think it's important to also include project review gates, or the toll gate reviews that you're going to have with the sponsor. I typically match them up to the 30-30-10-10-10 rule, and I try to have toll gate reviews at the end of each phase. So if my sponsor is hoping for the solution plan on their desk in 100 days, I will then try to set up project review, toll gate review dates at the end of 30 days, the end of 60, 70, 80, and so on. You get the idea. Project review dates. By doing that, it forces the sponsor to carve it out in their calendar, so then you're not introducing idle time waits while you're waiting to try to calendar an appropriate time to meet with sponsors. Get that nailed down right away. And then revisions to the document I typically include so that as the project changes over time and evolves and updates are made to this document, we can see those revisions in the revisions section. Here are a couple of final thoughts about project charters. Because a chartering exercise is done on typically day one, it's usually a kickoff exercise. Because we know the least on day one, most of these fields are going to be estimates and guesses at best. And so this document will have to be updated over time. I remind my team of this so that they don't feel as though they have to wordsmith a perfect charter document on day one, something that is precise yet vague enough so that they don't get pinned into doing or trying to solve or do things that they just don't know if they'll ever be able to do. I'd say let's create a very good charter. Let's not try to create a perfect charter. And one way that I reinforce this is by time boxing the time period that the team has to work on this. I typically tell teams that they've got 60 minutes in a group facilitated meeting to hammer out the details of a project charter. I only give them 60 minutes if we're starting from scratch. I only give them 60 minutes if they've been given a project initiation document. I still only give the team 60 minutes to clean that up. After they've spent their time on it, we always meet with the sponsor. There are 3 stakeholders that need to be crystal clear on the charter and have to be in agreement before we move forward. It's you, the team leader, It's the team and it's the sponsor. It's the primary purpose of this document to create focus between those three people. In a short, sweet amount of time, we're trying to use this document to create clarity and focus on what the work activities will be going forward.